right, welcome to the daily market recap for Monday, August 25th. In this video, we'll be taking a look at the action today of the indexes, the liquid leaders, industry ETFs, then end the video with long and short setups like we do with every daily recap. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with a live stream at the market open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. Getting into it, NASDAQ, pretty calm day across the market, especially compared to Friday's action. But that's what we wanted to see, really. Yeah, follow through would have been nice, but consolidation, we've had such a volatile last couple of weeks. Having volatility decline is healthy in my eyes. So, NASDAQ, we closed basically on the open, just under the 10-day moving average, down 0.3%, but on declining volume. Overall, even if we can put in a higher low here, let the 50-day moving average catch up, that would be great action. The S&P 500 a little bit weaker today, closing on the low of the day with a very tiny gap down. Ending the day down 0.44%, but still air to the 5-day and very light volume on today's chop. The growth stocks of the Russell 2000, IWO, this was down 1.1%, also closing on the low of the day, but Friday was up 3.5% on massive volume. So again, anything over the 5-day moving average on declining volume does not worry me too much. ARKK, great action today, consolidating over all the key moving averages, also on declining volume. Closed a little bit higher off the low than some of the other indexes there. And overall, this is a pretty quality chart. Like if we can tighten up for another week or so, it looks pretty good to head higher. Now, the downside this or for today was definitely crypto. Ethereum uppercut and failed right at the new highs. Bitcoin, or taking a look at IBIT to view Bitcoin, new lows of the pullback, and this really has sold off the second it made new highs on the 13th, and has just been flushing lower ever since. So, one warning sign is the action out of crypto names just not very strong. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the leaders, 6 out of 9, were up on the day. We'll just sort these by price percent change, go through them. MP, great action overall on this pullback. You can see a couple lower wicks into the support gap last week, inside day on Friday. And because it didn't respond well on Friday while the rest of the market did well, I'm sure a lot of people were kind of looking at this to break down. I wouldn't have been too surprised if it did break down. But we're still in a strong market. We're still above the key moving averages. So the fact that this had a small gap up and then a rally to take out the 5, the 10-day moving averages and this kind of 3-day pivot, not a shocker, but really good action today. Up 6.5%, reclaiming all the key moving averages. SoFi, awesome action, up 4.5%, closing at a new high. Really just strong action after the shakeout last Wednesday, I think that would be, into the support gap, reclaim the 20-day moving average, then just 3 days of rallying into highs. FUTU, the leading stock in China, along with TEM. Good action today. Again, higher highs, higher lows, closed in the upper half of the daily range, up 2.2%. This is with some weakness later in the day in Chinese stocks. We'll get into KWEB when we go to the industry ETFs, but overall, I really like the action of FUTU so far. And BE, one of the new stocks on the leaders list, and it is acting like one. We had the shakeout Wednesday under the 10-day moving average and support gap, reclaimed that area almost immediately. I think it was like 15 minutes. Reclaimed the 5-day on the close, and then just higher highs, higher lows into new 52-week highs. Reddit, good action today, up 1.1%, and now kind of just resets this pivot from Thursday's high to today's high, the 10-day moving average, the 5-day right there. We did uppercut and fail on Friday of this resistance gap, but I still think Reddit probably does go higher because it was one of the few stocks that when we gapped up on earnings, one, it didn't fade on that earnings gap up day. And instead of just consolidating like some of the strongest names did after earnings, this aggressively got accumulated. So from 186-ish to 250, first pullback to the 20-day bounce there. Quick, like 2-ish day snapback into the resistance gap. Now we're consolidating again. I don't see anything wrong with this chart. NVIDIA, this has earnings on Wednesday, so part of the market consolidation is probably just holding their breath for NVIDIA's earnings, but good action today, back through the key moving averages, closed kind of middle part of the daily range, but compared to the indexes, that is some relative strength there, up 1% today. Robinhood, a little bit weaker, down 1.3%, closed back under the 5 and the 10-day moving average, right on the 20-day. Did not get included into the S&P 500. IBKR did. I think Walgreens got kicked out. So I think it's trading down slightly after hours. And with crypto being weak, I could see Robinhood having some issues here. Uber tried to get going today, eventually reversed, closing on the low of the day, but doing so on very light volume, and it closed still over the 5-day moving average. So to me, not anything to worry about. And then ALAB, another name that had an uppercut and fail of a resistance gap on Friday, followed through to the downside a little bit, closed right under the HVC from that earnings gap up. Still over the 20-day. Now I just want to see volatility contract a little bit. We'll probably get that going into NVIDIA's earnings and then play uh, whichever direction we come out of Wednesday's earnings. I guess jumping into the earnings calendar, I like to go over this. PDD reported today. We'll cover that in a second. Um, Tomorrow, really the only one I'm relatively interested in is DQ because it's like solar and Chinese kind of two themes that I've been focusing on, but it's not really liquid enough to trade much. Um, OKTA, MDB, Box, not too exciting there. Really, it's Wednesday before the market opens. ANF, I've traded before, but NVIDIA, that's the king of the market. So we'll see how that goes. Snowflake, CrowdStrike, Vive, MTNX also report after the close. Tiger reports before the market opens on Wednesday. Another Chinese name to keep an eye on. And then some other stocks. Affirm is another name. Thursday after the close that I'm kind of interested in. And then Alibaba, big time. Very interested in that. Jumping into the industry ETFs, MSOS continues to be the strongest theme in the market right now. Nice little flag into the 10-day moving average. Push through on Thursday. Tight action on Friday, right at the 5-day. And then a gap up and push through today, up another 6.1%. KWEB got a little extended short term. PDD had a gap up to start the day, then kind of sold off, bounced back. I think it did finish. I guess we could check. I think it finished green. Yeah, up like 0.9% today, but not as strong as I was hoping for. So Chinese stocks, after it pushed off the 10-day moving average, now just a little extended short term, pulling back. And with Baba's earnings on Friday, I could see this kind of pulling back into the 5-day, maybe even the 10-day, this little breakout retest area. Gold miners, new all-time high, or at least 52-week high, tight close over the 5-day moving average. Semiconductors, flat on the day. Again, NVIDIA's earnings on Wednesday, not really expecting a big move until then. Solar stocks continued to act right, just consolidating over the 5-day moving average after Friday's awesome action, up 6.1%. Still think that this is a theme to focus on in the second half of the year. IGV, the software ETF, slight gap down, closed back under the 5-day moving average, but we do have kind of like a downtrend line here. So if we could pop through today's high, the gap, and the 10-day moving average, maybe we could start to work on the right side of the base here. Kind of similar action out of cybersecurity. Rejected at the resistance gap today, closed on the low of the day, back under the 20-day moving average. But it does kind of look like we're rounding out the bottom of this base. So a couple more weeks, we can start to work on the right side. And some pretty disappointing action out of biotech stocks. I do have a position in LABU. I didn't sell any just yet. Bought it on the break of the 10 and the 20-day moving average on the 12th here. So I'm still in the money on the position, just giving back a little bit more than I'd like. And Friday wasn't as strong as I was hoping for. Back under the 10-day moving average, losing Friday's low, not great action. But we'll see a pullback into the 20-day. Does that get supported the first time that we kind of break out over this pivot? I hope so, obviously, but time will tell. All right. Jumping into the long setups, we'll just sort this by dollar volume. I did take a position in Tesla today. Kind of as it came back through the VWAP, it had a really quick morning shakeout. Added the first part through the VWAP, added a little bit more through the red to green move, and I'll probably add to it a little bit more through 350 and just round out that position. But this is a stock that I've been talking about a lot on these daily recaps. Just multiple year base here after the run in 2019 to 2021. $12 up to $400. You need multiple years to consolidate a move like that. We have gotten that consolidation, and from compression comes expansion in one direction or the other. If you are saying that this is a little uppercut while we're going into NVIDIA's earnings and they're going to miss earnings, positioning is very heavy. We know NAAIM is at 98%. NASDAQ hot data is still pretty heavily owned, and you're saying this is the perfect spot to short. As long as you put it in a stop, I wouldn't argue with you. Like, we've got nice compression here. We're going to expand in one direction or the other. So as long as you play it with a stop, you could skew that risk reward in your favor. But to me, because it has that ability to run, because it's not extended, and if we get any rotation from some of the prior leaders into something that's not extended, it can move pretty linearly. So um, Tesla just through 350 would be the spot that I'm looking to add on. If we can pull back and put in a higher low, maybe let that 10 and 20-day moving average catch up, that would be even better. But not sure we're going to get that opportunity. Reddit, like I said earlier, I don't really see this as doing anything wrong. Like, we just had a lower wick and upper wick, so we had volatility expand. Now today we're seeing it contract, and we basically have a 3-day pivot from Thursday's high, today's high, the 5 and the 10-day moving average. Right through that area is viable versus the 20-day moving average to me. I would size it lower because we're going into NVIDIA's earnings, because we have this resistance gap here where we have evidence that there are sellers at this spot. Whether those sellers are going to be overwhelmed by buyers, that's like a separate argument. But we do have evidence that there's sellers here. So if you're buying on the 5 and the 10-day, you only have a little bit of room before those sellers exist. So not trying to size it up. I don't think it's an A plus setup, but it's a name that I'm watching for now. NBIS, this was probably viable on Friday. Just opening right at the HVC, the support gap low, right around the 20-day moving average on that undercut. Just looking for another higher low test of that area on a market pullback. So if we could pull back into 65.60, let that 20-day moving average catch up, that would be the play versus the low of the shakeout here. Again, I probably missed it, but I'm fine with that. We'll just watch it for a pullback. MP, nice action today. Now we're just looking for a higher low pullback into that 20-day moving average and the gap zones right around 67.50. Net, I know there's a resistance gap here. There's a support gap that we bounced from. Given like software is has that same kind of downtrend line, this was the leader in like software security, and really hasn't done anything wrong. Pulled back into the 50-day moving average, had a great shakeout on Wednesday, and instead of seeing like big wick, big wick, big wick, we really just saw consolidation, a little push on Friday, consolidation today. So I still think there's plenty of room for this volatility to expand, hopefully to the upside. But I would be looking at a pullback in like a higher low shakeout of the 50-day moving average into this 192-ish area as a potential buy spot. You could take it through the 10, the 20-day moving average, today's high, the resistance gap. I just think you, it'd be a little bit harder to size that properly, because then your stop would be a little bit looser, but definitely doable. APLD, this is one that I would take on strength. Would be looking for a gap up opening range break through today's high. Uh, the last week was like the A plus buy point, just a shakeout under the 10-day, under the support gap low, immediately reversed after that undercut. Could have played it against the 20-day. I did not. So now it's on my radar to buy it higher, but I really like the contraction today. Lighter volume as well. Still a close over the 5-day moving average and just sitting right at highs here. So if there's any momentum left in the market, here's a quality setup. And because I would buy it on strength, I would be looking to get my stop to break even like pretty quickly and play this more for a performance booster instead of trying to buy it, hold for a very long time. I'd be looking to sell into strength relatively quickly. Celsius, I don't think many people have been talking about this name, but it's already up. I think it's like 100 something percent off the lows here. Let's measure it. 195% off the lows. We've got the 200-day now in an uptrend, the 50, the 20, the 10, and the 5 all in the right order. Another one of those few stocks that actually gapped up on earnings, and instead of selling off, we kind of did sell off a little bit that day. We gapped up, tried to push, closed on the low of the day. But then the next day, we gapped up again and then followed through to the upside, making a really nice move. Let's measure that from the low. A 23% move in just a couple trading days. So kind of similar with Reddit. I'm just looking for a shakeout into the gap zone here at 57.30-ish area that would undercut the 10-day and kind of put the pullback into no man's land. If the market really falls apart, this 20-day moving average and gap zone at 55 would be interesting, but I would not want to take that in like one day of a shakeout. Hopefully, that would be like a 2 or 3 day market kind of sell off type entry. FUTU, the leader in China, along with TME, just looking for a pullback into kind of like a breakout retest, 10-day moving average and gap zones. Gap zones do not matter nearly as much for stocks that trade on other exchanges. So even though I have these drawn on FUTU, it's more so the breakout retest and the 10-day moving average that I'm looking at in this area, not as much the gap undercut. VSAT, double high type flag, just back to back, moved from $8 up to $16, pulled into the 20-day EMA. Nice little pivot and run before earnings, and then a blast off on earnings up 30% on massive volume. And instead of giving up any move after what is, let's measure this. Oops. 220% in 45 days. We have only pulled back about 10%, if that, into the 10-day moving average and support gap. Again, that Tuesday was probably the better buy spot, but we're consolidating. We're really tight right at highs. Just a break into new highs would be the buy point. Similar with APLD, this would be a performance boosting type trade. Try to get my stop at least to the 5-day moving average as quickly as possible. If it really starts working, then the low of yesterday or today, I guess, and the HVC. And then as it continues to work, the low of the day. Finally, we have OUST. Uh, really nice action, just pulling back into the 20-day moving average. Multiple days of supportive action at that gap zone. Just looking for an undercut of the support gap, 20-day moving average. Stop would be the low of the pullback on the 20th. Next, we go to the short setups. First one, I got Robinhood with crypto dumping, with the S&P not including it, and with some of our prior leaders like Palantir, Roblox. I know Roblox had a good day today, but some of those names are starting to feel weaker, like GEV. I think I have it on here. Yeah. Um, so kind of just feeling a sluggish move in this name lately. Would love a pullback to the 50-day moving average to get involved on the long side. So this isn't like a Robinhood's going to fall apart type trade. It's just okay, we've got a consolidation. We've tried to make new highs twice now and been rejected both times. Couple warning signs stacking up, and positioning is still just so long on NAAIM exposure. So looking for a break under today's low, and I would definitely look to cover at the 50-day moving average and support gap at 98. MSTR, I think this is down even more after hours, but is showing like a little bit of relative strength compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's making new lows. MSTR has not made new lows just yet. We look for a bounce back in Bitcoin, a lower high in Bitcoin, and ideally we can test the 200-day moving average again. I don't know if we'll quite get there, but That's an area I would add to my short. I still have a short from the 12th or the 13th. I forget which day I took it here. But still have about a third of my position short on this and looking to add back to it if we can get a lower high. I was not ready to pull the trigger to add to that going into the weekend with such strong action on Friday, but I love this gap down after testing the 200 day. Now, if we can just get a little rally into that area where sellers can come back in, you got the 10-day moving average as a potential lower high. A couple other like crypto related names that are just extremely weak. BMNR. This name was crazy, crazy strong from $4 up to 160. Turned for a couple days, trap people at 100 plus for this stock, and then just completely dumped. Fell all the way down to $30. Then had a nice big rally from 30 up to 67, over 100% move, right into the resistance gap on the highest volume ever. So once again, retail gets in right at the wrong time, right at the high of the rally, building more selling pressure as it comes back down into the 20-day. We have one good day on Friday, up 11%, and then today down 7.2%. This is one where I would look for a little gap up and then a green to red move to short versus the 5 or the 10-day moving average. It does have the ability to like really accelerate to the upside. It just did. It just went up 100%. I know it looks kind of weird on this chart, but this is a 100% move. So you can't fight the price action. Just like I talked about Tesla, you could tell me that's a short if you want because we have that compression. You can tell me that this is a long, and I wouldn't fight you on that as long as you're using a stop. Let's just jump to SBET because that's another kind of crypto related name and is basically just like one cycle ahead of BMNR. Did the same thing that BMNR did, where it had a massive move up from $2 up to $122, fell apart to $9, rallied back up, put in the highest volume ever on the resistance gap after a 200% move, trapped a bunch of retail people, sold down 50%, more than 50%, did the exact same thing, rallied up to the resistance gap on the highest volume ever, failed immediately at that spot. Now we had lower, good day Friday of 15%, followed by a gap down, close on the low of the day, down 8% today. Same thing, just looking for a little gap up, a green to red move, lose the 50-day moving average. And if Ethereum and crypto and Bitcoin can't find a bid, this will be pretty quick to the downside. Next, we have HIMS. I picked this for the Wolf competition on Twitter today. I really, really like how this short has set up overall. Should have been in it on this day, on the 6th after earnings. But the way it gapped down after earnings, after uppercutting and failing at this resistance gap at highs. So again, you get everyone excited, lots of volume coming in as we get right into new highs, right where sellers are at. We reverse there, gap down on earnings, and instead of gapping down and falling apart, we gap down, rallied all the way up, went green on the day, got a bunch of people to buy in, and then reverse close on the low of the day, just trapping all of those buyers. And because they're trapped, it just increases the selling pressure on the way down. You see, as the market was having bad days, this was gapping down, gapping down, gapping down. We have 3 gap downs after earnings. Then the market bounces back, and we can't even close over the 5-day. Just really weak action. If we get a little rally in the market, a rally up to the 10-day moving average and gap zone here at like 46, that would be the spot where I would be more aggressive with sizing to short. But I think through today's low with a little like gap up, green to red move, I think that would be a short versus the 5-day moving average. And then look to cover some at a 200-day moving average test. GEV, another recent leader that it's just running out of steam. It's a monster stock, and it has been a monster from 255 to 680, but you could just feel momentum like falling apart here. Eventually, a lower high, we get that wacky candle on the 13th, fall apart a little bit into the not even the 50-day moving average, bounce it before the 50-day. But we do have this resistance gap that we tested not once, but twice, reversed both times on that 20-day EMA. Then today we had lower highs, lower lows, closed down 0.8%, a little bit weaker than the indexes. Kind of the same thing. I would look for another rally into the 20-day here and then manage my risk with a stop at the high of the resistance gap. You could take it through the low of the day, but really like the spot that I would look to cover some is the 50-day moving average. And you're just not going to get like a um, ton of like value from that trade. More so, even like if you don't want to short it, completely fine. I would just have this on your radar and set some alerts like lower and upper to see how this stock responds to the market. Because if we do put in like this is another lower high and we accelerate to the downside, it's just another leader that's starting to have some troubles. VRT, another leader, previous leader that's having issues. Gap down on the 1st of August. I think that was on earnings. Rallied up into it, lower high, immediately reversed on big volume. Followed that up with a gap down. 2 days later, another gap down. 2 days later, another gap down. And just very, very weak overall. This is one where if we can rally up and uppercut the resistance gap high, maybe come into the 50-day, but not take out to Friday's high, just like come into the 130 area. That would be the short versus Friday's high. And what I would be hoping for is like an immediate reversal at that area, some follow through down on Wednesday going into NVIDIA's earnings so I can hold a piece of the short into the earnings. And if earnings goes well, I'll get stopped out of that piece, um, probably at like break even or maybe a tiny loss. And if for some reason NVIDIA doesn't report good earnings or if the market doesn't respond well to NVIDIA's strong earnings, this is one of the weaker names in that group, already under the like 50-day moving average, which is flattening out. So I could skew the risk reward a little bit going into that event. Same kind of idea with CRDO. Already sold off, had this resistance gap, sold off into the 50-day. That was a really quality spot to buy some for a snapback. Now we're getting up into the resistance gap again after 4 days in a row of rallying, just looking for a little gap up and like one more rally, uppercut the resistance gap at 118.90. That would be my short, and then just use like a 2 or 3% stop. Try to get some traction on Tuesday, on Wednesday, going into NVIDIA's earnings. If I don't get the traction, I would just take the trade off. Dave, software name that has been a monster, has already run from $4 up to $280 over the last 2 years. Now it's starting to feel like ANF's base here, where like it doesn't look horrible on the like on the daily chart, but you have the declining 50-day moving average. We uppercut and failed the 20-day and resistance gap today. So if we do follow through to the downside, that could be your short versus the 20-day, or a lower high rally into that area, uppercut 200, like get it to 202. Then you can use the stop as yesterday's high and give you a little bit more, a tighter stop, so you can position size it a little bit more aggressively on that trade. And finally, NEGG. This really feels like it's fallen apart now. We've had multiple days where we've rallied into the resistance gap, made new highs on Thursday, tried to get there on Friday with a big gap up that just immediately failed, closed below the 5-day for the first time in a while, and then today I don't think we gapped down, but we just accelerated lower, down another 15% into the 20-day moving average. I'm just looking for a little rally back into the 10-day, right around like 95, and then manage my risk against like $100 or the high of the day, 102. What would that be? 102.35 or so. But this is a name. It's run from $3 up to $130. Now we're starting to see the warning signs pile up. It's going to be a lot easier to trade it on the downside after we've lost momentum here. So that's going to be the daily market recap for Monday, August 25th. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. And if you want my market takes throughout the trading day, along with the live stream at the market open, you can sign up for the Discord using the link below. I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Have a great rest of your night.